It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. Obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors, but they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. The platform connects you with trusted experts to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. So whether you're closing your first deal or gearing up for growth, Vanta makes compliance easy. Join over 8,000 companies, including Y Combinator and Techstar startups who trust Vanta. For a limited time, get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/simplify. That's VANTA.com/simplify for $1,000 off.
Steering wheel. Laps of steering wheel, yeah. Give him steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
You like my bass? You like it?
How the that's possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? From the radio. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the Hanger State.
Boys and girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back inside the Part for Radio podcast number 925. It's Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's not asking much, is it? No.
Stop yelling at Todd.
It's not. Hey, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover what Formula One news there was this week. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guest, which of course means I got to go all the way to the right coast of our nation, nestled, well, near our nation's capital, where she does things with things and numbers. You know her, the lovely, the redoubtable Grace, how you doing?
I think that's the best description of what I do. She does things and things with numbers.
Just
Good.
numbers
That's
with
I just
things.
Stop things. Yeah.
It's just, kind of, that's,
Nice.
I have it's hard to describe what you do.
Things and things with numbers. That works.
Yeah. A statistician.
Where was that when I was dating? That would have been great. What do you do? Things and things with numbers?
Things
What do you
with
do?
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good job. I hope that's on your LinkedIn.
Yeah. I don't have LinkedIn.
Oh.
I mean, that was just like, I don't know. I get it.
What? Oh, Grace.
I can't manage it. If I had LinkedIn, it would still be like my job, like from 2015 or something. Like it's just
Right.
one more thing I cannot maintain.
Right.
Life is hard enough, people.
I know. It is hard,
Yeah,
especially if you're in Formula One.
that's right.
Hey, huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, including such fine folks like Dave, who was the first one to join us in the chat section for the live recording of this podcast. Dave is sitting with us in the co-pilot seat, chatting away. So great to have all of you here and supporting the channel. And if you support the channel, you can join us in the audience for the recording of these podcasts. And you can see talking heads and you can interact with us and you can tell me when I'm full of it or whatever you want to say. But so huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. So Grace, let's talk about some Formula One news this week.
It's always good if it's more than just me telling you that you're full of it, right?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, between you and Paul, I've pretty much got that covered.
Oh, it's fine. You're not.
So at first blush, I thought, it's not a lot of news happening this week. But then I got to going around and compiling some notes for the news this week, and there's quite a bit of news.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to get into testing, right? Like, doesn't testing starts like in a week or something, right? We have the launch and then they go to testing. So, yep.
Dave says he's more like in a stationary bike seat. He's captive audience.
There you go. Well,
We've kidnapped Dave.
I'll take it. Any of those hits.
We're going to ransom him for Hershey Barn a pack of Reds.
That's right. Keep pedaling. You're the only thing keeping this pod going.
Yeah. If you don't pedal, the whole thing shuts down.
Yeah.
So, there was this guy a long time ago in a land far, far away. There was a young man by the name of Franz Tost.
Yes.
And he used to be the team manager. Yes.
The oldest young man. Because I think Franz Tost, even when he was a young man, was an old man.
Yes, right. Smartest one of the bunch, mind you.
Yeah.
He was the team boss of Toro Rosso / AlphaTauri.
Right.
And, somebody over at Red Bull or maybe Franz himself put himself out to pasture. Yeah. He had done his duty for Austria and team, and he was ready to sit back, kick his feet up, and enjoy retirement. But, that's not exactly what he did this past week. No. He's offered a slightly different opinion on the continuing narrative that we all read, that the teams are positively drained, overworked, exhausted. This whole notion of a 24-race season is at the boiling point. It is going to blow up on Formula One because you cannot have all the team personnel flying all over the world, doing all of these races. It's just too much, right? That's the narrative. That's certainly what we read from commentaries from teams, from journalists in the press. We've read a lot of that commentary that it's just really onerous, and the longer the seasons are, the team personnel are just dog-eared, right? But Franz, he thinks it's all BS.
All right, let's hear it.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Here's what Franz had to say, quote, "People always say that the mechanics are overworked. That's a complete joke. They're not overworked at all. Beforehand, we had the race at the weekend, and we tested on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. In the beginning, we even had 2 cars, and it was always the same technicians and engineers. I never heard a complaint from them back then. Now there's a curfew in Formula One, which means it's over at 9 p.m. in the evening until 8 a.m. the next morning. Jesus, what more do they want? They're allowed to work in Formula One. That's a privilege. All this work-life balance, all this is totally pointless. You don't need something like that. It's something for people who are too lazy to work," end quote. Spicy, Grace.
Yeah, I love the old guy simplicity of this statement, right? They're just too lazy. First of all, I love this, it's a privilege line. This reminds me of whenever they talk about like college sports athletes, you get paid in education, right? Especially before sports name and likeness was a thing, right? It's a privilege that you get to play whatever sport at whatever school. You're getting paid with an education. Okay, let's pay the coaches an education and see what they think. You're not getting a paycheck, you're getting an education, coach. I'm pretty sure that's not how they want to be paid, right? So I think this idea of like, oh, kids these days, they're just lazy. It is a lazy explanation for what's going on in any situation. But here I think a lot of the problem, there's a lot more travel now, right? Yeah. So that wears on you, right? Whether you're working a 24-hour day or you have a curfew at 9, if you used to be based mostly in Europe and you had most of your races in Europe and you had a flyaway in the beginning and a flyaway at the end, but now all your races are flyaways, right? There's like 8 races before they're in Spain, right? So I think that definitely is aware. And it's just like, I just think this is always such a lame, simple, the kids. I don't think that's it, right? You bring them in, it's a pattern, right? The same thing happens in like the video game industry. You bring in young guys or young women, you burn them at both ends of the candle, and then they look at their life and they go, what have I done for the last 5 years? What am I getting paid? Nothing. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Right.
And then your argument is, oh, it's a privilege. Why? I could go work in aerospace and not have to work until 9 o'clock and be up again at 8 o'clock and not have to fly around the world and make more money. So what is this privilege of Formula One that you're talking about? It just creates brain drain. when you just run people ragged. So I'm not sure why that's really like his answer is that we should run people, burn them at both ends, and then go, oh, work-life balance. That's not what's going on here, right? Like,
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You know, it's one of those things where if you were 28, it would be a righteous job. You know, if you're 25, 28 years old, you know, got out of college, you got a job, worked your way up in the team, you're working, you know, whether it's a mechanic or an engineer, whatever it might be, or you could be working in marketing or hospitality, or whatever you might be doing at one of those teams. But it would be a pretty righteous job. You get to fly around the world, see the world. You know, there's a lot of great things you would do. But I think you're right, Grace. It's you get to this point, though, where you're only going to do that for so long, because it is a grind. Well, these days, gosh, did we forget how to fly airplanes? I mean, they're running off runways, and you know, it's crazy. But so there's one that flipped over. I don't know what happened there in Canada. That's horrible.
yeah.
So anyway, it's a grind, all travel. And at some point, you know, some of them may want a family. They may have, or maybe they get married. They met somebody in the paddock. They get married. Met somebody along the way. They get married. Maybe they want to have kids. Maybe they want to be home with the family more. You know, I remember when I owned my own company. You know, I was going at it 1,000 miles an hour when I was trying to make that as successful as possible. And there's that big chunk of time I missed when my daughters were very, very young that I look back and it just kills me that I missed that so much, you know? So yeah, you know, people's season of life changes. You know, I think I understand his point, but I think on the flip side of it, 24 races a year, they're all flyaways effectively, say versus Silverstone. You know, it's a lot of travel, man. And these days, for whatever reason, I don't know, we used to know how to fly around. We used to know how to move freight around. It's like we forgot how to do all that. And now it's a grind. So I hear you.
I just don't think you can get, like, you can't get mired into the, like, I'll put it this way, right? Anger is only a surface emotion. If somebody comes at you and they're angry, like if you were like, oh, Grace, I'm really angry at this. I'm your friend. So what I'm going to say is like, Todd, let's talk about this, because you're not angry. There's something else.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's just the outward symptom, but it's not the cause, right? So I want to talk to you about, why are you so angry? Like, what's really going on in your life that you're so angry at this moment?
I think you figured it out, Grace. I think you figured it out because, you know, when I said the lead in, either Red Bull put him out to pasture or he wanted to retire.
Yeah. That's
the we're on it now.
So I just think that if somebody is like, wow, work-life balance, there's something under that you're just blowing off as whining. People don't want to whine. That is not a state that people just, oh, they're 22, they like to whine. That's what every old person says about every 22-year-old. And when we were 22, that's what the old people said to us too. No, there's a valid point being made here, which is, what is my life if I grind for 5 years or 3 years or 10 years?
Right.
What privilege do I get from F1? I'm Gen X. Formula One doesn't give a crap about me, right? Like, my job is never going to be here and be like, oh, Grace, we support you so much. They don't. So why do I have to support them? Again, it goes back to, are we paying you an education coach? We're not. So why do I only get paid in education? And why am I considered a crybaby in work-life balance if I point that out to people? You know?
Right.
I just want my fair end, even though I'm only in my 20s. You know?
I mean, would you think 24 races is a ton?
Again.
If you were on a team?
Sitting on my couch and not doing a thing, except for this podcast, every other week or so is too much, right? Like, I'm not doing anything. I don't fly. I don't go, I'm like, I can't imagine. That is not a lot. I mean, I used to travel a lot more for work. It takes a toll on you. There's no way around that. And
yeah, it does.
And if you want to, like, even as a single person, like, I have family, I have things I want to do, I have life as well. I don't want to just do this thing all the time, right? So I think that you have to have perspective, because your plate is only so big, and everything you say yes to, you're implicitly saying no to something else. And at some point, you don't want to look back on that with regret.
Yeah,
I'm glad that the 20-year-olds figured this out now, as opposed to my generation. I feel like we're 40 and we're going, oh, wow, is that what I really wanted to do when I was 20?
Yeah, right.
Don't live that regret. Figure out in your 20s what you want and do that, and
do
have
that.
balance to your life.
Yeah.
You don't have to grind. That's
Become a master statistician number person that does things with numbers
or whatever, right?
See? You just shortcut that. See, there was Grace in her 20s, doing her thing, but where she ended up, so just bypass, don't be like Grace, just go right to the numbers and things with numbers.
That's right. So I'm just saying, I think this sounds like an old man with an axe to grind. I don't get, it's all right, friend.
Sounds a little bitter.
It does.
Just a little bitter, does that Franz Tost.
Although it does, I love that, like if you just gave me this quote, this totally sounds like Franz Tost. Like, this is
does.
like I could match this quote to the person without really
it totally
having to
does.
know. This is great.
I think you're onto something. I think there's some bitterness, because I think Helmut called him and said,
goodbye, good luck, and good riddance.
That's what I think happened there. So, hey, another talk about Red Bull. This was interesting. Do you remember that sprightly young chap, Gerhard Berger?
Sprightly young chap. Well, yes, I do.
Austrian, drove for Ferrari, drove for other teams. So Gerhard Berger was warning of internal feuds threatening Red Bull's success. Now, this was interesting. Gerhard expressed concerns that ongoing disputes between Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner, and advisor Helmut Marko, who we for years called Helmut Marko Helmut, like the Burgermeister.
Yeah.
Now we just call him Helmo.
Helmo.
He's got a singular name brand, Helmo. He could jeopardize the team's success. The disagreements, particularly over driver lineup choices between Liam Lawson and Franco Colapinto, may undermine team cohesion. Additionally, he says, Jos Verstappen's public criticisms have added to the internal tensions. Do you think?
What? Nobody's ever gone to Jos Verstappen and been like, peacemaker.
Yeah.
Like, he's a uniter. He's a diplomat.
He is. He's a statesman, that Jos.
Yes, right. That's never.
Jos spent most of his career bringing people together.
He spent no part of his career.
I'll tell you what he's good at: cross-functional collaboration across an organization. That is Jos in a nutshell, is it not?
Yeah.
And to boot, he's an individual contributor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he's got that going. Apparently, the suggestion was that Helmut wanted Liam and Christian was interested in Franco.
Okay.
You chose right, Helmut. You chose right. Yes, Melton says he's a synergy promoter. Yes, he is.
Yeah, exactly.
He is totally a synergy promoter, Melton. I agree with that.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's not the first time. Look, it's not the first time that teams have had intra-team conflict, to be sure. And if there is friction, it would be more leadership friction than we've seen when drivers collide. So, you've got the Senna Prost, the driver interactions between, we've had those driver issues before. This would be more team leadership friction. Maybe it's true. Maybe this story's true. Maybe Gerhard knows something we don't. But I'd say that they ended up with Liam, and that's the right choice in my opinion. So either this isn't an issue internally, or Christian compromised and went with Helmo's recommendation. So if there are signs of compromise and collaboration, I'd argue that is there really truly smoke and fire there, right? They would have had that internal debate. Christian would have made his case. Helmut would have made his case. They went with helmets, right? So Helmo wins. That's compromise in a negotiation. As for Jos, we've said this 1,000 times. He's only hurting his son in the long run. Creating tumult within a team by, sniping from the backbench is really not a good move on his part at all. Right. I hate to say that this reminds me of Lewis and
Anthony,
yeah.
His dad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it kind of does in a way. Maybe Max, like Lewis, needs to have a Lewis moment and kind of remove himself from that white noise. If you're newer to F1, so I'll make this quick for veterans, but when Lewis got into the series, he and his dad were like this, and his dad was instrumental in his career, and Lewis would never, I don't think, would ever say anything to the contrary. But he was his manager, and they got into McLaren, and it created, there was some real friction, some things that he was having Lewis do that wasn't really paying dividends, or may have put Lewis in an awkward position. And then Anthony, crashed a borrowed rare Porsche into a kid's playground, and things were getting kind of crazy, Yeah. And his dad, I think Lewis, being a young man at the time, was trying to handle it the best he could. His dad, with all deference to Anthony, I think he was trying to handle it the best he could, but there was just a lot of weight on everybody's shoulder. Lewis skyrocketed in fame and fortune, and that is a challenge in and of itself. And I'm just kind of feeling like Max needs to have that same sort of Anthony conversation with Jos. You need to stop. This isn't helping anyone at this point. I know you feel like you're trying to help me, your son, but it's not. That would be my recommendation, but what do I know?
No, so I want to handle this in kind of two compartments, right?
Okay.
The first one is
compartment one.
Christian Horner and Helmo, right? That's compartment one. Compartment two is Jos, right?
Yep.
So I think that we've discussed this before, in that the role of Didi in all of this, and his son passing, has really affected the relationship between Christian Horner as the head of Red Bull Racing and Helmo, who is an employee of Red Bull, right? So if you think of like the organizational chart of Red Bull, they kind of like sit diagonal from each other.
Yeah, right.
Not contemporaries, and not that Helmo's under Christian Horner.
Yeah,
Helmo
right.
is distinctly above him and separate, right? And so what he says is kind of has a higher, weight to it than what Christian Horner says. And I can't imagine that Christian Horner's okay with this. And somehow, Didi was able to manage this and was able to, kid Helmo doing, the junior racing team, junior driver program, and sort of that part of it. And Christian ran the race team, and it all kind of worked. And it's just not worked since then. And the two of them really haven't, worked together well. And so, and Christian Horner, I can't imagine. It has to be hard to just have to take these decisions. So, I agree that I think if I had to choose between Liam and Franco, I also would have picked Liam.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's, I think that regardless, Christian may have wanted driver A and Helmut wanted driver B, and then we're at an impasse. And it doesn't really matter who the right driver is. The driver that won is Helmo's driver, and I'm sure that can't sit well with Christian Horner. And there just doesn't seem to be that intermediate area anymore that's able to smooth it over.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point in mentioning Didi, because from the outside looking in, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm almost positive this will resonate with you. There's no doubt in my mind. We're on the outside looking in.
Right.
And I can tell you a distinct difference of that racing team without Didi.
Yeah.
There just is. and you have to wonder would all of this happened, losing Adrian and Jonathan Wheatley and all of this, and with Yoss, and would all of this have happened, right? Mm-hmm. There is and Christian Horner might look at me and say, well, yeah, no kidding. He was passionate about motorsport. He kept everything in check. It was his show. No kidding, it's different without him. And Christian would be right, but I think it's evident in a situation like this, and I'm not trying to put a lot of credence for or against Gerhard's, assertions here, but I think you're right. And Didi, what was your number 2?
Well, I also think the other thing that kind of lends to this, the Helmo story is So remember, he had added that clause into Max's contract about that they were that if Helmo was there, Max was there, and if you got rid of Helmo, you had to get rid of Max. He put that in Max's contract. That wasn't something Christian Horner had knowledge of, right?
Right. And
because he sits higher and diagonal to Christian Horner on the org chart, he can do that. I just can't imagine if I was Christian Horner.
You'd be a little mad, wouldn't you?
I don't want to ever imagine that I'm Christian Horner. But if I was in that position, we would be pretty mad. And that now that they've extended Helmo's contract, it suddenly is no longer in Max's contract, right? It's fine. I'm here for a while. We don't need that in Max's contract, right? That he's able to dig himself in that way. It was not great. And so I guess if Helmo was just happy with the privilege of working in Formula One, this wouldn't be such a problem, and he could just be at Red Bull F1 Racing and it would be fine. And he wouldn't need to pull things like this. But, he's an old guy, and he always pulls these
pretty
Bernie,
shrewd, though.
He pulls these Bernie moves. That's totally a Bernie,
totally
if you're going to get rid of Max, you got to you extended my contract. Yeah, we don't need to worry about that now. Totally a Bernie thing.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
So old true guy logic here. So and then I think for Joss, he, in his opinion, is doing what he thinks is best for his son. Now, whether or not that's my opinion, that's different, right? And I think that he just is trying to work every angle that could ever be used as an exit clause. Because eventually, if something happens and Max walks, Joss, as Max's surrogate, would be able to say, well, I told Christian this was a problem and he just didn't listen. Here's where I told Autosport, or here's where I told the race, or whoever, right, that this was a problem. Yeah, well, if I just say everything's a problem, even a blind squirrel gets a nut occasionally, right? If I put out enough reasons why Max is upset, one of those is bound to be a reason.
Yeah,
we can exit this clown car. So
right.
I do. So I can see that sort of role of, the Anthony and Lewis comparison. But I also think that a big part of the Anthony Lewis was Ron Dennis. Christian Horner is not Ron Dennis. This is a very different kind of dynamic in that sense. But I think that we know Joss, and that's the other thing too. We didn't know Anthony Hamilton. If Lewis Hamilton hadn't been in the sport, we wouldn't know who Anthony Hamilton is.
Yeah, true.
We all know Jos Verstappen. And so any reporter is going to be like, hey, Mr. Verstappen, I'd like to get a comment. Because of course they are, because who doesn't want a comment from Jos Verstappen? It's going to be spicy.
It's always going to be spicy,
So, but I think he's just trying to throw everything out there, just,
No, I think I think he's absolutely, in his mind, he absolutely is convinced he's helping his son.
Yeah.
For sure. And to your point, by constantly pulling at the thread of Red Bull and raising improprieties or things that are wrong at Red Bull, constantly keeps the conversation around what Red Bull may not be delivering per his son's contract, possibly.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so you always keep that fire burning of doubt, but I think in the long run it's just creating more chaos than it really needs to be at the team. I would be shocked if it hasn't changed Christian and Max's relationship, because you could hear that on the radio after all this kind of went down last year. Before, Christian would come on the radio at the end of the race, have a lot of praise for Max. He still does. Max would have a lot of genuine response to Christian, and now it's a different conversation they have, and you can tell that that's changed. So my 2 cents, but we'll see if Gerhardt's right. All these teams, would it be a shock to see Red Bull not win the championship this year? No. Wouldn't be a shock to me. All teams ebb and flow. They all wax and wane. I mean, look, Toto Wolff on top of the world for 6, 7, 8 seasons. That team was a juggernaut, a dynasty, and it fell hard, and that happens.
I'm just glad my team is on the wane as they're on the wax once.
No, other way around. You're waxing, they're waning, yes.
Who knows? It's the moon. Who knows?
It's the moon. Yes.
It's full. It's not. It's new. Whatever.
It's a mystery. The moon.
Anyway, I'm just glad that it's finally McLaren that's on the way up while the other team's on the way down.
Yes, and I'm kind of glad that Ferrari's on its way up.
Right? I'm here for that.
Yeah. So why not? Starting this year or into the next year, with the new regs and all that, why not a good old-fashioned McLaren-Ferrari battle? I'm up for it. Just like the old days, Grace.
Until somebody ends up at Kinko's, it's fine.
With the Ferrari manual, it'll be fine.
Right. It's fine. It was 2 pages, people. Calm
down.
Right.
It was 20,000 pages. So that's that news. In other news, so you're being critical of things. We mentioned this headline last week in Alvin's Cats, and I got to reading a little bit more about it. You remember last week I said that Bernie Eccleston had criticized Lewis's move to Ferrari. Bernie had criticized his decision to join Ferrari, criticized Ferrari, said he hoped Ferrari didn't regret this move after all the money they paid him, suggesting that there's going to be internal challenges in competition with Charles Leclerc that's going to hinder his success. He questioned Hamilton's motivation after securing 7 world titles and highlighted potential difficulties adapting to Ferrari's environment. I did think it was funny last week. So you had Fred there with Lewis and Charles.
Right.
Now keep in mind, Charles fluent in Italian. Right. And French and English. Right. So Lewis is up there and the whole team is down there and they've got him on some scaffolding or whatever. And there's Charles and there's Fred. They hand him a mic and he's like, testing.
Yeah.
Ciao, amici. And everybody's like, oh my God, he spoke Italian. Oh my gosh. It was just, as soon as he said that, it was like, oh my gosh, Lewis spoke some Italian. Meanwhile, Charles over here, okay, he said hello, friends. You want me to read the technical manual in Italian? I can do that.
Have you seen the video where James Vowles starts speaking in Spanish while sitting next to
Yes.
Sainz? That one I love too, because Carlos always has the best face because he's like,
he does. He's like, whoa. Yeah, it was great.
Ooh, look at that.
It was great. He said, look, Ferrari's had its share of internal politics and management challenges, to be sure. And I'm interested in I'm most interested in the friction of like the Vettel-Leclerc era, and if that might be repeated in 2025.
Could be.
Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel experienced difficulties during their tenures at Ferrari, which could suggest that Hamilton may encounter some similar obstacles, right? For me, it comes down to if you believe Lewis is a quicker driver in the same machinery as Charles. And while on the surface, you'd hate to bet against a 7-time champ, but I also think you have to consider his performance against George at Mercedes. As we've said before, and I've said on this podcast before, George, Charles, Max, Carlos, Oscar, Lando, they're all part of that younger generation driver. That's not Lewis's peers. He's not in that group, right? He's in the Fernando, Vettel, Checo group. Right. And so are we convinced Lewis's move to Ferrari will be the spark that lifts Lewis's energy, his focus, his performance up to a point of knocking Leclerc's feet off the desk and taking over that team in order to win his 8th title? It's a tall order. And while I would love to be proven wrong, I'm not sure I would bet heavily on that. And I think that in essence is kind of what Bernie's saying. Now, it doesn't come across that way in the news article. It comes across much more terse than that. But I think that's what he's alluding to, that there's more challenges than meets the eye.
I think that's
at that
true.
Team. Because it's Ferrari. It's a political beast.
I think that's true, but I think also from Lewis's perspective, if staying at Mercedes he didn't feel was an option. Because if staying at Mercedes was an option, that's where you would stay. I think you always choose the enemy you know, right? Like, so for whatever reason he feels staying at Mercedes is not a good way forward for whatever, however many years he has left in the sport. 5, we'll just say 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Staying at Mercedes wasn't it. So then you look around and you're like, well, McLaren's out, right? They're full. They're not getting rid of their guys. Red Bull is currently full, half full, but I am not going to Red Bull and being second to Max Verstappen. Like, that's not going to happen, right?
No.
Where else was he going to go? So I think that's part of it too, right?
And he always wanted to drive for Ferrari.
Everybody wants to drive for Ferrari.
Of course they do.
So I see Bernie's point, but also what else was Lewis going to do? But I also think it'll be interesting because I think every time there's a management change from Stefano Domenicali to Mattia Binotto, it's always like, this is the guy. So now we're all like, maybe Fred's the guy, right? Maybe Fred is the guy that can kind of like finally get Ferrari to work like we all want them to work. And,
to that point, Grace, I have a little egg on my face because I wasn't convinced of that.
It seems to be working.
I got to be honest with you. It kind of seems to be more the guy than the last 3.
Yeah.
Right? So that's on me. I eat crow on that because I wasn't 100% convinced. I only knew Sauber Fred.
Yeah.
And although he's still kind of all shucks, gaha, guff ha kind of guy, which is fine. I love that about him. I think he is more the guy than the other 3. So sorry to interrupt, but I agree.
No, I think absolutely that's the point, is that I think that to me is what I really want to see above and beyond whether or not Lewis gets his 8th championship, is that maybe this is it. Maybe Fred really is the guy we wanted, right, at Ferrari. And even though we've said it every time there's been a management change, and I thought Binotto would have done, I really thought Binotto was going to be a bigger, he's from the inside. He worked with Michael Schumacher. He'd been at the team all that time. Like, he knows where the bodies are buried. He knows what he could fix and change, and that just didn't work, right? So, and he was, he's a totally different kind of a management perspective to the team, and that didn't work. So maybe Fred, we'll see. But I think, either way, at this moment, Ferrari, this is genius, right? They're milking this marketing cow for all they can.
Oh, they should. Yeah, they spent a fortune. They should.
And even if Lewis doesn't get his 8th championship, it's still going to be great for Ferrari. And I think that we'll just have to see if Fred can do it. It seems so far that he's been able to get this team going.
Yeah, and I'm not kicking Lewis at all. I mean, I hope it is sort of, it's what he always wanted to drive for a Ferrari before he retired. It'd be great to see him get there completely re-energized, all new challenge, put the bit between and do the Lewis thing that we've seen him do so many times before, and lead Ferrari to a championship would be awesome. But I don't know that it'll be that easy. We'll see.
No, and he's watched this. You talked about, Vettel, you talked about Fernando Alonso, like Carlos Sainz, like all of these people that haven't been successful at Ferrari. He's seen that too, right? Like, he's going into this with his eyes open. It's not like he's some young ingenue that's just going into Ferrari and doesn't know. He knows what he's getting himself into.
Yeah, he does. He knows what he's walking. He's seen how Charles struggled, too. And I'm sure he's watched a lot of video on Charles.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's see. What else is the news? Oh, this is, we talked about the FIA prize giving gala.
Yeah.
And that was in Rwanda. And then while they're there, the, what do they call the head of, is it the president of
They have a prime minister.
Prime Minister of Rwanda.
I think they have a
sorry, I don't know my African political.
I barely know my own.
Right. So the president of Rwanda at the time during the FIA said, hey, by the way, glad you're all here because I have an announcement. I just want to let you know that we've thrown our hat in the ring to host a Formula One event and bring Formula One back to the continent of Africa.
Right.
Everybody's excited. Except the DR Congo.
Yes.
The Democratic Republic of Congo urges F1 to halt Rwanda Grand Prix plans. Here's what's going on, folks. The Democratic Republic of Congo foreign minister, I am not going to attempt the second part of the name because I'm an American and I will butcher it 6 ways to Sunday unless you know how to pronounce it. Therese Wagner is the last name. It's Kaikwamba? All right, I'm just going to do it phonetically. Therese, if I got that wrong, I apologize because I have no idea how to accurately pronounce that.
She can't say Todd. It's okay.
She'd struggle with my last name.
No, she would know how to say it. But anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, she called on Formula One to cease discussions about hosting a Grand Prix in Rwanda, citing Rwanda's alleged support for the M23 rebels in eastern Congo. Wagner emphasized that associating with Rwanda could damage F1's reputation. She's also suggested that South Africa might be a preferable alternative to hosting the race, which I would guess that it's got its own issues going on right now, too. F1's expansion into new territories often, and this is me talking, often involves a lot of geopolitical considerations. And Grace and I have talked about this quite a bit in the past. The sport previously faced that kind of criticism when hosting events in countries with contentious human rights records, such as Bahrain or there was a kind of an uproar over Saudi Arabia, those kind of things. The situation with Rwanda presents a similar ethical dilemma for the organization. Despite the concern over Bahrain or even Saudi Arabia, the race was approved in those two locations. I'm not making any ideological or moral statement here, but there are so many moving targets with these situations, from human rights to ideologies to sports washing to economics, etc. I recall seeing commentary about the second race in the U.S. and how the U.S. should not host a race due to human rights violations, etc. So one person's human rights issues is another person's revolution. It's very difficult dilemma for Formula One to navigate. So what's the answer? Should F1 or the FIA have like a charter or an outline of quote, must be true parameters for any nation desiring an F1 race? If so, what should those elements be? You start to see the complexity of the issue. And I think that's always been the challenge in any of these nations, be it China, Malaysia, India, Turkey, Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Rwanda, no matter where they want to move, Grace.
So I think one has to think implicitly about the message that's being sent to the rest of the world by making this decision. So what does it mean to the rest of the world if Formula One has a race from Rwanda? What does a sport based primarily in England holding a race in Rwanda, what does that tell people, right? And that they have to live with that. Formula One is going to have to carry that with them, just as the same way that being in Saudi Arabia or Azerbaijan, what does that mean for you as a sport, right? So I think that, it also reflects on us as consumers. At what point am I going to say, you know what, I'm not okay with this. That's a line. And does that mean I don't watch a race somewhere? Do I just not watch Baku? Do I not watch, Saudi Arabia? Or do I not watch Russia when it was on the calendar? Oh, Russia was a terrible race. You just shouldn't have watched it. But maybe you shouldn't have watched it because of Russia. There's all these sort of things that we also as consumers have a place to stand in there. Now, I just like you, I am not comfortable armchair quarterbacking deadly atrocities in Rwanda or the DRC, right? Like I know what I know, and it's not enough, right? But I do think that when Formula One is going to be pushed on this, it's the same thing when I remember that interview with Stefano Domenicali when somebody went like, hey, Saudi Arabia, should we be here? What about those missiles that were just dropped like right over there? And he kind of went, boy, look at the kids, aren't they cute? Right? Like he totally dodged the question, which I understand. Of course he's going to dodge the question. But you have to know that's coming. And Formula One, if you're going to continue to move into these places and then just say, oh, it's just about money, and we all know that's crap, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can say that, and maybe that is why you're there, because Rwanda had a lot of money. But this says something about you as a sport, and it says something about Liberty Media. And you can never separate politics and
very difficult.
The interrelationship of all these components to each other.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
What I think is... what strikes me is that we have MBS who's out there like, don't be swearing on the radios, but we're going to have a race in Rwanda.
Right.
Cool. That's where
Right.
you're going to spend all your energy, right? And so, right, I get it, and we all have a platform, right? Formula One has a platform. Each of these drivers has a platform. I mean, some of them spoke out about Saudi Arabia, whether it was just like, hey, there was a bomb drop there, maybe that's not okay. I mean, and Rwanda and the DRC, like this is not, it's a very tense situation, and it's not one that I would necessarily want to be that close to, but I also don't live in either Rwanda or the DRC. I would be armchair quarterbacking it at that point, but they should know, right? They're the ones that are going there, putting their lives
Yeah, you got to do the research.
There. And I think that we all have a decision to make, right? If we want to continue to watch this, not watch it, watch that race. No country is pure. No company is pure, right? I think there's always scandals when it's like, oh, they support that. Liberty Media, for sure. They support things I don't agree with, but I keep watching Formula One, don't I? So what does that say about me, right? So I think that's where we each have a place to stand. The drivers have a place to stand. Formula One has a place to stand, because Formula One having a race in Rwanda says something to the rest of the world, and we're left to decide what to do with that.
Yeah, it's about like when NASCAR goes to Pocono. Oh. Okay, it's not the same.
Pocono is a lovely place.
I've never been to Pocono. I'd love to go.
I've been to the track.
Yeah. So it is a very, see, that's kind of why I'm thinking, if you're going to do that, I think, and I'm sure F1 has a tick box of must be trues,
Well, I mean, to me, those tick boxes are pretty few. If this is like, now we're moving in my opinion, we talked about this. I was like, when they are having the prize giving ceremony there, I was like, okay. And I get it. It can be very deflating. I think that's the other thing too. It is. I don't want people to get mired down in the like, well, no country is good, so then we just shouldn't have Formula One at all, right? I want us to approach it with our eyes open, have conversations. What does it mean to be in Bahrain? What does it mean to be right in Rwanda? What is
Miami?
That?
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, though, those are difficult. Let me put it this way: if Stefano is right and Formula One's right, that people are literally crawling over each other to host a Formula One race, then if that's true, okay, surely you've got some other options that don't have some of these significant issues. Right?
Germany has like 3 tracks we've been to.
They've got tracks already. France has got tracks already, Right. How about a race in Finland? Why not Sweden? Why not Austrian Grand? Well, there is one. There's other places you could go. Yeah. Back to South America. Mm-hmm. Where was it? What were they looking? Argentina? Was that where they were looking? Yeah. So there's other places you could go around the world. that maybe bring less baggage. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right.
I just think, yeah, right. And this whole when was the last race in in Africa? Was not yesterday. It was quite some time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Now you're like, well, it's very important that we're in Africa. Now you're really, it's been over 20 years, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Now this is your biggest concern.
Why is it so important?
Really?
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Bahrain, Grace.
Yeah.
Gulf Air renewed their title partnership for Bahrain Grand Prix until 2027. Formula One announced that Gulf Air, the national carrier of Bahrain, has renewed its title sponsorship through 2027. The extension solidifies a long-standing relationship between F1 and the Bahrain airline. The Bahrain Grand Prix has been a staple, mind you, Grace, a staple of the F1 calendar since 2004. Gulf Air's continued sponsorship underscores the event's significance in the Middle Eastern leg of the championship and highlights the region's growing influence in motorsport. You think?
That just made me feel old.
Yeah.
I remember when
And I'm
Bahrain
looking at your team, Grace.
I remember when Bahrain. Listen, leave Bonnie Raitt out of this, okay?
Isn't that the sovereign wealth fund that props up your team?
That's correct.
Okay.
Again, see my previous, rant, right? Like there's no way you can look. So we all have to live with that and figure out where you stand as a human on these things. But but no, I was thinking more like I remember having this conversation about Bahrain in 2004.
Yes. Goodness. Yes, we did have that conversation in 2004.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. We've been doing this a while, haven't we? We're going on 18 years. I keep saying that all the time, and I think it's not because I'm bragging about it. I think I'm more stunned that we've been doing this for 18 years.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm stunned. I'm not saying it out of arrogance. I'm saying it out of shock. Really?
Yeah, I think that anytime it's like when you go to graduation and you're like, hear the year kids were born or something like that, and you're like, whoa, my gosh,
yeah,
right?
I know.
That I'm in a restaurant or in the grocery store and they're playing songs from the 90s, and that would be like I being in a grocery store with my parents and hearing Led Zeppelin or something, right? Like, what? Oh,
it's like I am not ready to hear Neil Finn and Crowded House and elevator music.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm just not. I'm not there yet.
I'm not ready for that. Yeah,
I'm not there yet.
I think that's where that is. Yeah.
I know. Hey, Williams. Yes, they unveiled the 2025 car after major changes over at the team. They unveiled their 2025 Formula One car, marking significant changes for the team. With a new sponsor and a refreshed design of the car, the team aims to improve upon their previous performances. Let's be fair. Williams last year, they did look better in the second half of 2024. They really did. So maybe that's a good baseline to evolve that chassis for 2025 in. And I looked at the car, and it seems kind of, I'm not an engineer or an aero guy, but it kind of seems that's what they've done. But the 2025 car's unveiling, coupled with the strategic changes, indicates a real determined effort to return to competitiveness on James's part. Kind of reminiscent of the dominant periods of the 1990s is where they want to get. And I think James is chipping away at now the more larger, more restrictive elements of a podium finished car, namely like aero, chassis production. While the days of the 20,000 cell Excel spreadsheet may be over, the task at hand is no less large. And he's said that always from the beginning. It's going to take time. As such, I think Carlos is going to have to be really patient in 2025.
I mean, I was just watching an interview from another podcast. They were talking about how Carlos has been at 50% of the teams. Like, sure has, right? Like, so why not? What's one more Girl Scout badge for Carlos Sainz?
Right.
So. But I think again, it's the best fit for him, even if they're not going to win. Right? I think that to be a part of Williams is going to be better than many of his other options.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think James, Paul nailed it the first year when they were doing so much better when James is there that first year. And Paul said, well, pump the brakes. Now he's just fixing the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But next year it gets really hard. And he was right. The second year was really tough. And now this year, I think he's probably firmly dug in to the trenches there now and making some real headway. But the things he has to solve now are huge rocks.
Yes, that's right.
And so you have to give him time. Hey, just as a reminder for all of you out there, tomorrow is the O2 F175 car launch. So don't forget that. The official launch at the O2 in London is tomorrow, Tuesday. What is that date? Tuesday the 18th?
Yes.
And if memory serves correctly, that's when it is. Also, for those wondering, you can watch for free on F1's social media channels and their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Which really ticked off the people who paid to go see it.
Did they think it wasn't going to be televised?
Well, why would they think that they were paying for an exclusive event that wouldn't be televised?
I don't know. That seems dumb. I don't know why I would ever think that.
Know. I would have thought that it would always be televised. That's the point of it, is so the world can see all of the liveries. It's a livery launch.
Right. It's not a launch if we don't get to see it.
Right.
I think that, but I guess the other thing too is it's like you can watch, you can go to a Taylor Swift concert or you can go and watch her movie, right? The concert. But clearly the movie isn't the same as going to the concert.
No.
When do you expect that to be here too? Like, yes, I can watch the launch on YouTube, but that's not going to be the same as your experience being there, right? There has to be some reason why you want to be there. But to think it wasn't going to be televised seems pointless.
I'll just give you a quick synopsis of the social media tomorrow. The event sucked. The event was awesome. That livery on the such and such car looked like crap. No, that livery was awesome. The host was terrible. The host was great. That band, the third band was horrible. No, the third band was like the best I've seen them play. It's just, that's what it'll be all day tomorrow.
But I will say that when we checked earlier to make sure, I knew where that we had subscribed to the F1 YouTube channel, there were 45 people already waiting at 5 o'clock at night or whatever. What are you waiting
I saw the
for?
show. It said starts in 24 hours and all these people are waiting.
45 people are waiting.
Yeah. It's like, it's like the old days when you thought, oh my gosh, Pink Floyd's coming to town, and you'd camp out at the ticket place where you got your tickets, and you were in line all the way around the building, and you're out there, at 4 PM the previous day with a tent and waiting for Floyd tickets or something. I throw Floyd out. I don't pick a band. U2. I don't care.
I don't know, right? But wrapped around your local Kroger's or whatever.
Yeah,
exactly.
You're waiting
to get your tickets.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, and then one of you, because since you're there for hours, one of you counts and we're 98th in line. Or I remember standing in line forever and we were 18th in line. And we were so excited because we thought 18, we're going to be second row at worst, right?
Yeah, right.
And so we got in there. No, it's row 20. What? Where's all the seats? No. Yeah, okay, we don't get those seats. Frustrating. Back in the old days.
Frustrating.
Back in the old days.
Kids
hey.
don't know. Now you just have to sit at a computer and keep hitting enter.
Enter. Let's see. Oh, we were talking about our friend Valtteri Bottas and he is now set to mentor. Did you get that word? Mentor rookie Kimi Antonelli in 2025. Now Mercedes. Go ahead.
If you pay me enough, I'll mentor him. You can call it whatever you want.
Valtteri did just about anything they asked him to do right now.
Yeah, right?
Mercedes announced that Valtteri will take on mentorship role of the rookie driver Kimi Antonelli. Team principal Toto Wolff emphasized Bottas' experience as invaluable in guiding the young Kimi through the inaugural season. So I guess what? George said no?
Of course he did.
George said, no, I'm not playing wet nurse to that kid.
Job.
It's not my job. I'm trying to go out and win a championship. And by God, I'm not letting Max Verstappen push me around anymore.
My job is to lock him in the bathroom, not to mentor him on the track.
Yeah. Evil, wicked Max. Somebody's got to put Max in his place. It's going to be George. So mentorship pairings. Have we had that before? Sure we have. We remember the whole Michael Schumacher and Felipe Massa one?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, that was so great. Remember when Michael took Felipe under his wing? And Yeah, but you and I knew what was going on. They were shoving Michael out of the door.
Yeah.
And so he made it sound like he was jumping on the grenade. He was going to make room for this new phenom from Brazil, Felipe Massa, and he took him under his wing. Michael was trying to save some face for being set out to pasture for Ferrari.
Yeah.
So was it mentorship? I don't know. Fernando and Lewis and McLaren. Oh, yeah, no, that didn't work real well. I'll tell you what.
I love that idea. Fernando Alonso, the mentor of anybody.
The mentor, yeah, of anyone, even Lance, right?
I love that idea.
Yeah. I'll tell you one that did actually work, though, was Jackie Stewart and Franz Tost. That actually did work real well. Anybody that drove with Jackie, he was such a coach. Have historically accelerated rookie development, but in some ways those days are in the past, and they were typically two current drivers. So like I just mentioned, Stewart and Severe, they drove for Tyrrell. Even Michael and Felipe are both current drivers driving for Ferrari and all that kind of stuff. So, but in this case, we've got a reserve driver who is mentoring, which I'm sure it's happened before, of course. I'm sure there's been some veteran reserve drivers who had helped rookies. Bottas's steady demeanor and extensive experience make him well-suited to mentor Antonelli, and Kimi, in my impression, would do well to take as much as he can on board.
Yeah, and if nothing else, he can be there when Kimi's like, these guys are jerk faces. You're right, they are jerk faces.
They are jerk faces. They fired me.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. They could do that. Brought in George. It's not that Valtteri has an axe to grind with George. And hey, worst case scenario, if the racing thing doesn't work out for Kimi, Valtteri can show him how to do his own butt calendar.
They could do one together.
They could do a butt calendar together. That'd be great. 2 butts are better than 1.
You get more funds that way.
Yeah, you get more charity dollars.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, I did see I saw a passing headline. I didn't read the article, but the headline just caught my attention real quick. I saw a headline that said Ferrari is focused on their new SF25 car for this year, and they plan to develop it immediately within their first 4 races. And it did make me sort of just consider that philosophy. In days past, the car you had in the first flyaway races is the car you had. Right. And most of the major upgrades didn't occur until they came back to Europe, usually Barcelona. And there would be a raft of upgrades. But man, things have changed so much now. Those major upgrades are still the case when it gets back to Europe. But now they are developing and upgrading cars even on those initial first 4 races and flyaways. They're flying parts down. I mean, every point counts. And the teams these days, they don't leave it until the series is close to home to bring developments. They're doing it constantly. So it'll be interesting to see cost cap and how much development happens in the first part of the season. Will be curious for me.
Yeah.
In my mind, what do I know? All right. You ready for some Albin's Cats?
You know lots of things, Todd.
Controversy,
Grace. Oh, Albin's Cats. What do you got for us, Grace?
All right, so maybe people knew about this, but I didn't know about this.
Okay.
So therefore, I'm going to share it with people because maybe there are other people that didn't know about this. Did you know that David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan had a podcast together?
Yes.
Okay, so it's delightful. If people like me did not know but stumbled across this podcast, give it a listen. Delightful. So,
it is. It's a lot of fun.
formula for success, right?
Yeah.
So David Coulthard and EJ, and they're just talking about Lewis Hamilton, right, and his move to Ferrari, right? A hot topic here, and so they're talking about that, and of course EJ is recently.
So sad.
Right, he's in cancer treatment. So he talked about that, and that he was not on the podcast for a while, but he's back. And even though he's still finishing on his chemo treatment, he's feeling good. And so he's really, he's kind of talking about that. But EJ always has these great stories, right? That's what I always think of. And I was like, well, we got to watch this because there's going to be some good stuff in here. He could be reading the phone book, and I'd want to listen to EJ telling me about it because it's going to be great, right? So he's talking about how he's in South Africa because he just had chemo and he's, relaxing in South Africa. And, he's just hanging out with his boy, Adrian Newey, because his wife Amanda's from South Africa and, they have a house there. And, we're just hanging out, just casually drops that in there. And then he's like, oh, yeah. And then while I was having dinner in Cape Town with Adrian and Amanda, I was casually also having dinner with Mike Rutherford of Genesis. And I'm going to be playing drums this evening. Oh, that's right, with Nick Collins and Mike Rutherford. Oh, sure, AJ. So he's like, I'm back. And I'm like, yeah, you're back with, but I love that he just drops it. And I'm just like, oh, okay, is Tony coming too? You have almost the whole band there, right? We'll just bring all of Genesis back together. And then David Coulthard goes funny you should mention Mike Rutherford. Did you know that Phil Collins and I are Jackie Stewart's grandsons, were co-godparents of Marcus Stewart? What? What is this world that's just happened? And then he's like, because Phil Collins, it comes up because Phil Collins just bought Jackie Stewart's house that he raised his kids in. And so he's like, so Phil Collins just bought Jackie Stewart's house. And, did you know, by the way, that I'm the godparent with Phil Collins to Marcus? I'm like, what is this
crazy
world that you people live in that you're just you're dropping again, everybody but Tony. You're dropping all of Genesis here in this just casual conversation you're having.
Who's buddies with Steve Hackett?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's just really funny when EJ, I was just eating dinner with Mike Rutherford and Angie. What? Oh man. But anyway, so it was delightful, and it was just the way they kind of tell the story as if you or I would be like, oh yeah, I saw Paul today on the street. Oh yeah, Paul, he's a lovely guy. That was nice. We got some coffee. Okay, cool.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I didn't see that episode.
It's recent. It's this week or so. So, but anyway, they're having Art Marsh Snap now, and I'm like, well, I'm here for that because I do love. How could you have a better group of people than David Coulthard, Eddie Jordan, and Omar Snapnauer? I'll be listening to this. So
I'm gonna have to. I was just looking here to see if I can find it. Yeah. I'm gonna have to find that one.
It was on YouTube. I assume that they, like us, there's an audio version and a YouTube channel, a visual version. But I'm just saying it was pretty great. And right. And I'm glad that EJ is back. He was, he's looking better. In good spirits, playing drums again. All these things.
That's great.
That was great. And because EJ's a national treasure. So.
Hey, speaking of drums, and I know you play drums. Do you ever watch the Drumeo series?
All the time. I love it.
Oh yeah. So they just I love Kenny Aronoff.
Yeah.
And he's like the human metronome, right?
Yeah.
And he's such a great guy. And I don't know how many bajillion records and songs he's played on. I mean, the guy's, the guy's CV is like a book. And he's such a cool guy and everything. And so they had him on recently. I just watched that one. And they had a Yes Alpha 90125 song that he had to do. And it's such a cool thing because he had his own spin on it. Of course, but they had a lot of similarities in how he read the music, and what was even more amazing to watch him chart it all out, like an absolute pro that he is, and he charted it all out. And he played it, and then when they told him, it was like, oh, well, Alan White, the late Alan White, and I were real good friends, and of course, and I just thought it was such a great episode of a real singular professional paying homage to a wonderful drummer. So that was such a cool episode. But I keep meaning to ask you because I know you love drums, and if you'd ever watch those, they're great.
Free plug for Drumeo. If you guys are even remotely into drums, even adjacent, check it out. I could watch any of their videos because there was one they had with Stuart Copeland recently.
Yeah. Stuart, that was great.
Because the whole time it's just like, again, the storytelling of he's just like, and then Stingo would say this thing.
Yes,
and I'm like, oh,
Stingo.
whatever, Stingo, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was great. Like,
It was great.
and then Andy would play some licks and then I'd come in and do this thing. It was just like the sort of like how they have the people, and that, drummers are often, I think it's kind of like the beauty of a race car driver or any sort of like, it's not just doing one great lap. It's that you have to do 50 great laps, right?
Yeah.
And not get bored and always keep engaging and always hitting the apex. And a drummer has to do that same sort of thing. So it's just amazing to watch them just like be able to do this. And,
Right.
And Brandon just throwing out songs and Stuart's like, oh yeah, I could play that. And it but it's
Yeah.
just like, of course, because this is what he's been doing. It's his job,
Yeah.
and he's a professional. But I'm just like, holy cow, man! He's just like, oh, sure.
I really enjoy him, and I'm not a drummer. I'm a guitar player, so I couldn't play drums to save my life. So, but I really enjoy him. And the last one was Mike Portnoy, but he reversed, he flipped it. So Brandon had to go out and play a new song that no one had ever heard from their brand new album on Dream Theater. Mike Portnoy had to do it. Brandon's fingers were bleeding from playing. And I was thinking, poor Brandon. And, if you think about that, Mike Portnoy has played that song, but like 2.5 hours of other songs, right?
Yeah,
and it's amazing how those guys do that. And how many songs they do is crazy. But anyway, I kept meaning to ask you that, and I forgot. Anyway, you ready for some No Shit headlines?
Always.
Let's do some. First up, F1 rich kid Lance Stroll's net worth, famous ex-girlfriend, dad's billionaire fortune.
Wait, whose fortune are we talking about? Lance Stroll, his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend, or
Dad's.
his ex-girlfriend's father? Right.
Could be his ex-girlfriend's dad's billionaire fortune.
There were too many people and not enough commas involved in that headline.
I don't mean to be salty, but my take on that headline as clickbait, I bet they didn't get as many clicks as they thought it would.
Nobody cares about Lance Stroll.
I don't think anybody would click on a Lance Stroll story about his net worth, his ex-girlfriends. I don't. I don't know. I know that's crass, and I shouldn't say that.
I would click on Fernando Alonso is mentoring Lance Stroll before.
I would too. I would click on that. Yeah. I would click on Fernando Alonso and Lance's dad's billionaire fund.
Yeah, that's right. Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso says only good things about Lance Stroll. Yeah, we've all heard those. That's great.
Right. And the last one, Sergio Perez is in talks over a shock F1 return. Just 2 months after leaving Red Bull after disastrous 2024 season.
Is he also going to mentor Kimi Antonelli?
No, but I don't know where these rumors are coming from. I don't know. Maybe there's smoke this far. I don't know. But the big talk is that Sergio Perez and Daniel Ricciardo could end up driving for the new Cadillac team.
Man,
and the question I got there is, given both their performances before they ran out of Formula One, is which one of them is coaching the other or mentoring the other one?
Just let Danny Ricciardo get on with his life.
Let Dan be Dan.
It's over.
Dan should be in WEC. He should be. I think Dan would love NASCAR, but
he would. I think that would be great. I think
D-Rick would be great for NASCAR.
He's number 3 because of Dale Earnhardt. How could you not?
I know.
That's just that's a story written there. So they should have put him in Daytona instead of Helio Castroneves, right?
Exactly. Should put D-Rick in there.
That's right. No, I think so. But Ricciardo himself has said no. And not in a sort of we'll see, it's over. I'm just kidding. No, he's over.
Yeah,
right? Let it go.
Let it go.
Move on, people. So
I agree. All right.
Call up Kimi. And do they still race trucks? Is there still a truck season?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
All right. So very good. So call up Kimi, get him out of retirement, and ride yourself some trucks. That would be great.
I agree.
I want to watch that.
I agree. I'm all for that. I think that would be a great idea for both of them to get into the truck series. Why not? You could have Kimi and D-Rick together.
I love it.
I would love it too.
Especially because is there more of a perfect odd couple personality-wise?
No.
Kimi and Ricciardo. I love the idea of them doing pressers together or unbox videos together. Who doesn't love that idea?
That would be, Yeah, I agree. That would be pretty awesome.
That would be great. I'm here for that.
I am too. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think about the news. You let us know what you think about the news. You can do so at the Part From A. Hey, if you made it this far into the podcast, should have said this at the beginning, but I didn't because I'm silly like that. I changed over the winter here. I changed our logo and the look of the website. I just tidied it up, came out with a new logo. And some folks asked me about the logo and the merch. And today I updated all of our merch, our t-shirts and stuff like that. So the merch that's up on our store now has all the new logos, and you can go and get merch if you want the new logo there. So
well, now I know what I'm doing after this podcast.
There you go. And
I have to buy all the merch.
You do. You do.
My wardrobe is now easily like 60%.
I know.
Part From A gear.
And you look great in it. You know?
It was great, though, because at the Super Bowl, one of my friends was like, wait, don't you have a Formula One podcast? A friend of mine was asking about it. Well, of course, I was wearing a Park From A shirt.
Yes, I do.
And
Here.
I was like, and she's like, what's the name of your podcast again? Here it is.
It's this.
It's like all I wear is our merch. So,
right,
there you go.
Right. So anyway, so you can pick that up at our shop if you're inclined to do
Excellent.
it. And we'll be back next week. If you like the podcast, give us some love, give us a good rating at your favorite player, and share it with other folks. And also, we'll be back next weekend to do this all over again. We'll find some fun stuff to talk about. We'll do it all over again next week. So until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you next week.
I'm trying to say bye.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. I feel I've got to prove it all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.